Welcome to the Wolverine Confidential Podcast, brought to you by Corewell Health. I'm Ryan Zook.
And I'm Aaron McMahon.
Michigan-Ohio State game week is here, and stakes are sky high. Can the Wolverines pull off another upset and win their fifth in a row in the rivalry for the first time since the 1920s? We break down the matchup and share our predictions ahead on Wolverine Confidential. Happy Thanksgiving Eve, Aaron, as we inch closer to game day. Obviously a huge week for football, but I mean, the men's basketball team also is playing in the Players Era Championship in Las Vegas. We are aware the Wolverines have started 2-0 there with a pair of dominating victories over San Diego State and Auburn. But today's going to be a football-centric pod. Obviously, stakes massive for both teams. Michigan needs a win for a shot at making the playoffs and maybe a berth in the Big Ten title game. OSU needs a victory to avoid feeling the wrath of a rabid fan base for losing 5 in a row, including consecutive years as a double-digit favorite. So, I mean, yeah, it should be an exciting game. It's football. It looks like it's going to be football weather on Saturday. Wolverines coming off a dominant 45-20 win over Maryland, but they played without a few key guys and also had another leave the game due to injury. So I guess let's start off this pod by getting your read on Michigan's health entering the biggest game of the year.
Yeah, we've gotten more clarity on a couple of guys. One being Jordan Marshall. He didn't play last week against Maryland. We were told after the game that he could have played and he was going to be fine for Ohio State. That certainly seems to be the case. Sherman Moore said on Monday when we spoke to him that Jordan Marshall is expecting to play. We spoke to Jordan Marshall Tuesday night after practice, and he said he's ready to go. So I'd expect him to be full go on Saturday. The big name looming out there right now is Max Brennis and the status of him. He obviously came out of the game against Maryland with the foot injury. He was on the sidelines with crutches and a boot on his right foot. He still remains hurt. I mean, we spoke to him Tuesday night, and he came out in a literal scooter type thing. It sounds like he's going to try and give it a go this weekend. I don't know if he'll be able to play, but certainly the Michigan guy in him wants to play. So I think they're going to determine that as the week goes on. I'd be a little surprised just based on what we saw Tuesday night of him. If he does, I'd be surprised if he suits up Saturday and plays. But I wouldn't put it past him either. I mean, this is certainly a big game to him and a big game to those guys that have been on this team now for several years.
Yeah, I mean, Tuesday night, when we saw him come out of the doorway to speak to media, and he's wheeling himself towards the just huddled up around media, and it's just like, oh my God, like, oh, it sounds like he's just going to be talking to us about how he's going to try to provide emotional leadership from the sidelines, and then he actually stands up and talks to us standing up on both legs. He had a boot. He was wearing a boot on his, I think, right foot. So yeah, and he stood there and said talked about how much this game means to him and how he's going to give everything he can to play in this game. The one question I have is, I mean, how effective and healthy would he be? I mean, would it be hurting the team to have him out there at 65%? I don't know. I mean, I get how much the team and coaches love him and what he brings to this lineup, but I also don't think you want to put him out there if he's not healthy enough. He's not going to help you on the field either.
Yeah, this is kind of reminiscent a little bit to 2022 when Blake Corum had the leg injury himself and tried to will his way to play. And they let him suit up and they let him play a couple plays, and it quickly became obvious that he wasn't going to be able to go or been able to be, like you said, be productive for the team. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case for Max Brennis on Saturday. Whereas they let him play a few snaps, he realizes he can't go and shuts it down. But I will say this: I mean, it's not like Bredesen plays it's not like he's touching the ball every play. It's not like he's getting 20 carries a game or he's absorbing all that contact. He's more of a blocker, right? Like if he can hold himself up and stop the defender in front of him, that's basically what it comes down to. If he can be productive in that way, they certainly would want him out there. But again, I don't know what capacity he's in. It's important to point out, he didn't specify what the injury was. He wouldn't go into detail of what it was or how severe it is. This could be one of those situations where whatever happened to him, it can't get worse. So they're going to let him go out there and play. But as you said, it comes down to whether he's actually helping the team on the field. So that will be something Michigan will have to determine. That'll be up to the coaches. But it's hard to keep a guy like him out, right? Like he's a 5th year guy. He's a captain. He's one of those like down and dirty Michigan men, quote unquote, that want to play in this game and have earned the right to play in this game. So I don't know. I think we'll get to the game on Saturday. He will be addressed. He'll probably try to go through pregame warmups and then maybe try and play a few snaps. But he certainly, I don't think, going to play the full complement. He's going to probably go out there and do what he can and whatever he can. If it helps the team, great. If it doesn't, they'll pull him.
Right, exactly, and look for more Jalen Hoffman in that role if Max isn't able to go. Another player that won't be suiting up is 2023 hero Rod Moore, who had that game-clinching interception a few years back at Michigan Stadium. Not really a surprise because we haven't seen him play in a few weeks, but head coach Jerome Moore confirmed that he will not be suiting up. So yeah, obviously a blow to the secondary there. But yeah, getting Jordan Marshall back is, I think, going to be huge. As good as Bryson Cusdahl looked against Maryland, I think you need a guy like Jordan Marshall to have any shot. I mean, just a hard nosed runner. Uh, just has just been, I think, improving every week since taking over for Justice Haynes as that lead back. So yeah, and he's an Ohio kid too. I feel like there's talked about a guy that's going to have plenty of internal motivation too. He talked about that at length on Tuesday night. Talked about how Ohio State was one of his finalists in the recruiting process. He loved Tony Alford, who was with the Buckeyes at the time, and then threw a little bit of shade at the Buckeyes coaching staff, which I don't know about you. It was kind of me. I read that it was about Ryan Day and the kind of the culture there and how he kind of runs things. He seems very happy to be at Michigan. And we'll have plenty of motivation heading out there on Saturday because last year he played in the game, only had 1 carry for 3 yards. This year's going to be different. He's going to be a featured guy. The offense is likely going to run through him quite a bit.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, they're going to have to lean on him quite a bit, especially if they want to play the game that that they want to win this one. I mean, we've seen it time and time again with the Michigan Ohio State game where Michigan wants to control clock, control time of possession. And to do that, you have to have some success on the ground. And they're going to lean on Jordan Marshall first and foremost for that. It is helpful that Bryson Cusdahl has played better the last couple of weeks. He's gotten experience in his feet wet, so to speak. So I do think he'll still be part of the game plan. But no, I mean, Jordan Marshall is going to be the number one guy. There's no doubt about it. I do wonder what type of capacity he's playing in. He says he's fine. He says he feels fine. But as I said last week, in the run up to the Maryland game, he didn't do all the pregame stuff, especially the blocking. So it makes you wonder what type of shape his shoulder is in. And look, it may not matter if you're handing the ball off to him 20 times, but at some point too, it can be a little bit predictable out there if he's not in there in any pass blocking situation. So it's good to have Jordan Marshall back. You want your running backs as healthy as possible, and they're going to need them. Like you can't afford to be one dimensional in this game because it's going to whether you away. So it's a good thing. If you're a Michigan fan, you hope he can be productive on first and second down, help Bryce Underwood out. Because when you've got so many young playmakers, Bryce Underwood and Andrew Marsh and some of the offensive linemen, you need guys that can make plays reliably. And Jordan Marshall's shown that he can certainly do that.
Yeah, you nailed it with the predictability part there too, because so much of Michigan's success in the passing game this year has been on play action, and if you don't trust Jordan Marshall in pass protection because you don't want to hurt his shoulder, yeah, you could be a little bit too predictable there. And Ohio State's stout against the run, stout against the pass, just been stout everywhere. I mean, they're the top ranked unit in the country by a large margin. Any way you want to slice it, points against, yards against, passing defense. It's just been truly an incredible defensive performance from Matt Patricia's unit this year. Even though they lost like 8 defensive draft picks from last year, they've reloaded, and it's going to be tough sledding for Michigan on Saturday. So yeah, you wonder, you think that you would have to think that Michigan's going to dive into some bag of tricks a little bit just to try and catch the Buckeyes off guard for an explosive play or two. Because I mean, if you look on paper, Ohio State has the advantage in many aspects, but again, that was the case last year too, and some of the other years that Michigan has won the past four. So it should be a fascinating chess match as well. And yeah, like you said, it is end of November. No team is fully healthy at this point, and guys are playing banged up. I mean, Ohio. Look at Ohio State. They played without their top two receivers last week: Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate. Um, Tate has missed the last 3 games. Smith just missed last week, and I know sounding like he's in a better position to play than possibly Tate. But again, even if those guys are able to go, doesn't sound like they'll be at 100% either. So it's guys will have to rise to the occasion on both sides, and we'll be playing banged up on both sides.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the nature of college football at the end of November. Guys, very few guys are at truly 100%. Guys are dealing with something, they're going through something. Teams are holding guys out as precaution. We saw it last week with Jordan Marshall in Maryland. You mentioned, Jeremiah Smith in Ohio State last week. They're holding guys out so they can have them for these situations. Because yeah, it's all hands on deck at this point. You need everyone possible. I mean, we've seen it in times where guys step up in this game and make a difference, and that's certainly going to be the case Saturday. I mean, Michigan's need all 22, really, all 11 on both sides of the ball to make a difference, because any one little mistake could certainly cost you.
And yeah, I mean, I think the weather element's going to play a factor too. The more I look, the more likely it seems like there could be some snow flurries during the game. It's for sure going to be cold. Probably some wind there too. I mean, what impact do you think that might have on the game?
The cold itself, I don't see it impacting a whole lot. I mean, you've got two northern teams that are used to playing outdoors and in this type of weather, in cold weather. So I don't think that's as big of a deal. If the snow comes through, because I did see at some point maybe Ann Arbor might get an inch of snow during the day on Saturday. I don't know what time that is. That obviously will impact the passing game a little bit, and maybe some of the special teams functions. When it comes to weather, the wind is the big deal. If there is a wind, that impacts more. I think more than anything, there isn't supposed to be much. So I don't know how much of an impact it's going to have. The snow may, but other than that, I mean, I think you're going to get the best of both teams here. It's going to be cold, no doubt about it. We may get some snow flurries and everything else, but I'm looking forward to this game. I'm very intrigued, and we'll get into it probably a little bit in predictions, but I'm very intrigued by both of these teams for different reasons. And the matchup, I think, is it's certainly more fascinating than it was last year. And I don't know, it's just there's a lot going on.
Right. Yeah. I mean, got to give Michigan a ton of credit for going into Columbus last year and winning. But with that said, they literally had nothing else to play for besides just to spoil Ohio State season. It might change the narrative a little bit here that Michigan has a lot riding on this game too. Like, do they tense up a little bit too, knowing like if they lose, their season is done and they're not going to be in the playoff. It will be. People were concerned that the expanded playoff might kind of dilute this rivalry a little bit. I don't think that's been the case. I mean, we saw what happened last year on the field with the pepper spray and all that afterwards. And this year, I mean, you could tell this game means a lot to both teams. But with that said, listening to head coach Jerome Moore this week and players, not really much bulletin board material coming out of Schembechler Hall. I mean, is there anything that was said that has kind of stood out to you from interviews this week?
You could tell they were very careful about their word choice, some of the responses to questions. Sharon and the players on Monday specifically, the captains Marlon Klein and Giovanni Alhadi, they're asked the gauntlet of stuff, and I think one of the more interesting topics that were asked about, we didn't get a lot of clarity on, was just the mental aspect Michigan carries into this game. And they've won 4 straight. They've clearly had Ohio State on the edge now the last couple of years, and we saw the post game antics last year in Columbus, and just the Ohio State players melting down, and the flag planting and everything else. You could tell last year's loss really wore maybe on Ohio State more than previous years. Now That being said, the Buckeyes responded, right? They ran the table in the playoff, won the national championship, so that was kind of all forgotten by the end of the season. But there's still the losses to Michigan are still looming on them, and Michigan has had clear, I think, psychological advantage now the last couple of years. Now, how much that matters on Saturday, I don't know. You could make a case. It's certainly fueled Michigan's success in this rivalry the last couple of years, and certainly I think it certainly could help Michigan at least early on Saturday. We were talking about this the other day with some of our colleagues, but Michigan's that type of team, and we've seen these games play out over the last couple of years where the longer it goes and the closer it is, I think the more it favors Michigan. They've proven to be the more maybe the team with more stamina, the team that can last longer. And I don't know if that's going to be the case on Saturday, but Michigan's certainly playing good football right now, and they're setting up for something a close game of that magnitude. So, just a lot of questions about that the rivalry itself and the intensity and all the things you can think of. As for bulletin board material, there you mentioned the Jordan Marshall comments about Ohio State's program, and he kind of looped Tony Alford, Michigan's running backs coach and former Ohio State running backs coach, into that conversation as well. So it seems like they're both kind of lockstep in their view of the Ohio State program. I was kind of surprised Marshall had those comments, but I'm sure Ohio State will be using them as fuel this week. But other than that, not a ton. I mean, Michigan's an interesting spot because they've got several guys from Ohio or from the Ohio State program on this team. I mentioned Marshall. You mentioned Tony Alford, Rod Moore. Obviously, is a former Michigan guy. And this isn't the first time, right? Michigan's had a laundry list of former stars from the state of Ohio play in this game, play for the Wolverines, and win. So, I don't know. There's a lot to go on here. You got two different stories, two different programs, and slightly different positions, with a lot riding on the line, really, on both sides.
Yeah, this will be the third starting quarterback for Michigan in the past 3 years in this game, and it will come shortly after the 1 year anniversary. Bryce Underwood decided to flip his commitment from LSU to Michigan. On that day that he flipped, he posted on social media, "Hometown hero." And this is a shot for him to be a hometown hero going up against their biggest rival. He grew up uh, nearby to Ann Arbor, went to Belleville, started at Belleville, 5-star, number one overall recruit. So, like, I mean, he's been kind of immersed in this rivalry for many many years, and this is his first kind of crack at it on the field and getting the chance to experience it. I guess, how key do you think Bryce will be on Saturday, and kind of what are your expectations for him?
Oh, well, he's the biggest variable, I think, from Michigan's perspective. I mean, if he plays a clean game and doesn't turn the ball over, and we see the Bryce Underwood of, like, the Maryland game or some of those games early in the year where he's making those big throws and crisp plays. I think he can be a huge difference maker, and something we haven't talked about a ton because we haven't seen a lot is his legs and his ability to run. Michigan's kind of been guarded with that in the last few weeks. They haven't had him do it a ton. More of like him recognizing situations and taking what's given to him as opposed to design runs. And it would not surprise me at all if you see more design runs for him on Saturday. It's not something that's been put on tape a ton this year, and it could certainly catch Ohio State's defense off guard. So to me, he's the biggest variable for Michigan. If he plays well, I think Michigan has a real shot to win this game. If we see the Bryce Underwood of a couple of weeks ago against Northwestern, where he's throwing interceptions and making bad reads and poor decisions, it's gonna certainly cost Michigan. So clean game, Michigan has a shot to win it. Anything else, I hesitate to give them much of a chance.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. I mean, yeah, week 3 against Central Michigan, rushed for 114 yards, 2 touchdowns, had 61 rushing yards the following week against Nebraska, but hasn't had more than 50 since then. So I get trying to protect him as much as possible, but this is when you say screw it, and we got to win this game any means possible. If it means like having to do quarterback draws and have them go through a couple defensive tackles, so be it. Like, this, your season's on the line, and you need to win to play for anything meaningful for the rest of the year. So definitely wouldn't be surprised to see more of that as well. And like you said, he needs to make smart decisions throwing the football. I mean, didn't have any turnovers against Maryland on last week, but I mean that one interception, the Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles is aren't going to be dropping that pick, which probably would have been returned for 6 if the Maryland defender was able to come up with it too. So Michigan can't afford any mistakes like that. And you look at key differences, like you saw that in these recent years. Ohio State will come up with some turnovers, and that's just a huge momentum swing. They kind of have more of the experience team at this point, I think. So I think turnovers and rushing yards, well, like it is everywhere, it seems like will be very important to determine the outcome.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You need to play a clean game in this situation. I know Michigan didn't play one last year, but they were able to lean on their defense to kind of overcome those mistakes. And quite frankly, Michigan had a really good defense last year with some really good players. They don't necessarily have that this year. I think it could still be a bend don't break operation where they can limit Ohio State, in their offense, maybe forcing the field goals as opposed to interceptions. But I don't know if they can get the key turnover that you're expecting if they need one. So Michigan's offense is going to need to show up and play well Saturday. That they did a very good job against Maryland on first and second down. The offense did. It resulted in a lot of third and short situations, and I think that's what's going to be key for Michigan to be successful on Saturday and churn out some of those longer drives that ideally they want. Problem is Ohio State's very good on third down. They're one of the best teams in the country. I think their teams are only converting at like 28%, 30%. So Michigan's going to have to really be successful on first and second down. That obviously is going to hinge on Jordan Marshall and the run game picking up yards early, and then Bryce Underwood making key decisions and not turning it over on third down. The long time-consuming turning drives will probably be a theme on Saturday. At least that's what Michigan's probably going to try to do. Because if you look at Ohio State, quite frankly, the offense is obviously scary. You want to keep them off the field and limit the possessions and limit the points. It's obviously easier said than done because, as we know, Ohio State's defense is statistically at least really, really, really good.
Yeah, and they've been absolutely dominant in the red zone too, limiting teams and keeping teams out of the end zone. Another X factor I think that maybe hasn't been talked about enough is special teams and field goal kicking. I mean, last year that was the difference in the game, in my opinion. I mean, Dominic Zavada hits 2 field goals, including a 54-yarder in the game. Ohio State's kicker misses 2 in the 30-yard range, and Michigan wins 13-10. Like, just absolute huge swings there. This year hasn't been the same for Dominic Zavada, and with opponents' struggles to find the end zone against Ohio State, does Sharon Moore get extra aggressive and opt to not kick a field goal? And there's going to be decisions that have to be made because I don't feel like Sharon could say anything he wants about having confidence in Zavada and all that stuff. But like, as we've seen it, even against Northwestern, they decided to go for it with a walk-on running back on 4th and 1 instead of trying to kick a go-ahead field goal or game-winning field goal at that time. So missed one last week, did bounce back with a nice 46, 48-yarder at the end of the game that didn't not too much pressure there because the game was already out of hand. So it'll be interesting to see how his struggles this year maybe impact some decision making for Sharon Moore and company.
Absolutely. And on the flip side, Ohio State's kicker is having a really good year. I mean, he's 13 of 15 on field goal attempts. He's just missed one field goal under 50. So he's been pretty automatic, really, in short yardage situations. So Ohio State certainly figured their special teams out. That could certainly benefit them if they can't put it in the end zone. And it's going to put, again, more pressure on the Michigan offense to put some points on the board. As you said, they may have to be more aggressive. We haven't seen that a ton this year, and if we have, it's been in spurts, right? It hasn't been like a constant theme. Sharon's kind of picked and chosen his spots to be more aggressive. Maybe that's the case on Saturday, but based on what we've seen, I'm not expecting it. But again, I think it goes back to my original point. They got to be successful first and second down and get in a lot of third and short situations, and that would promote Michigan to be a little bit more aggressive on fourth and short if they get into those. So, I mean, look, it's gonna take everything to win this game. They're going to have to be more aggressive. They're probably going to have to make some uncomfortable decisions. You might see some plays that you haven't seen all year, maybe even some players you haven't seen all year get involved here. So the notebook, the play sheet, the playbook is getting emptied on Saturday. There's no holding back at this point. They need to win this game if they want to get in the playoffs here.
Life is beautiful and fragile. We fall. We get tired. And sometimes we get sick. But with Corewell Health, we are also strong. We fight disease. We battle cancer. We come together. We come back. We push forward. When the body breaks, we break through. Corewell Health. We can.
One more thing before we get into the predictions. We didn't touch on this earlier when we were talking about injuries, but yeah, Ernest Hausman didn't play last week. We spoke to most captains this week, and Ernest was not one of them too. So, anything on that front, and do you expect him to be out there on Saturday?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't really have a good answer. We didn't speak to Ernest and we didn't speak to Rod Moore. We know Rod Moore's situation. So Sharon did say that Ernest was day to day earlier in the week, which signaled to me that he could be available to play on Saturday. We haven't got a whole lot of clarity on what's going on there. I don't know if it's injury or what the situation is. Or he's been very active on social media the last couple of weeks. Really started a religious podcast daily thing. He's been putting up. So he's been busy doing stuff. I just don't know how much of it has been football related, and we haven't gotten a whole lot of explanations as to why. So. My guess is he does play on Saturday, but it's been difficult to kind of parse based on what we've been told this week.
Right, yeah. Jimmy Rolder was one of the players that talked to us, a fellow linebacker, and he was asked, "Is Ernest been practicing this week? And like, do you expect him to play?" And he paused for like it seemed like a couple seconds, and just said yes. And like so like not too revealing there. I don't know how much you want to read into that, but I mean that's leading tackler this season, multi-year starter for them. I get Jimmy Rolder and Cole Sullivan have been really good this year. Troy Bowles has kind of come on late, and even the two true freshman linebackers, Nathaniel Owosu Boateng and Chase Taylor, have been decent. But I feel like you'd still want your leader out there is if he's healthy and available too. So
That's just it. He is the leader. He wears the green dot in the linebacker room. I mean, he's a key guy that kind of directs traffic in some respects. Wink Martindale has a lot of affection and respect for him and his abilities. So, yeah, I mean, you want him out there. There's no doubt about it. So, but again, it goes back to our discussion earlier about Max Bredesen, right? If he is in fact injured and dealing with something, where is he at? Could he do more damage than help to the team? That's all the things you have to weigh and play in. So Michigan's got a decision to make, and we'll see. We should have a better idea Saturday morning pregame when the player availability report comes out.
all right, let's get into it. Michigan, Ohio State, noon Saturday. What's your prediction?
Oh man, I could see this game going any way. I could see Michigan winning this one again. I could see Ohio State running away with this based on Michigan's just inexperience. They got a lot of young guys. Something we haven't really touched on in the podcast this week, right? Like some of these guys haven't played in this game. They don't really know what to expect. Can they handle the moment? We think they can, but it's a different story once you get in it. That being said, I think Michigan's playing their best football at the right time. I think they have enough playmakers on offense to move the football and put some points on the board and put some pressure on Ohio State. I don't know if the defense has what they had last year, like the mental makeup and the ability like they had last year. So I think Ohio State wins this game. I think they win it close. I think Michigan does cover the double-digit point spread. I think it's a one possession game late. I think Michigan might have a shot to keep up and potentially tie, but I think this is the year Ohio State ends it. I think they've winning the national title last year maybe changed their perspective a little bit. Maybe taken some of the pressure off of this game in some respects. for Ryan Day and the players. And quite frankly, I think they have the talent offensively. They got some two juggernaut receivers. They got a quarterback who's been very productive this year and played well with those two receivers. So I'm going to pick Ohio State to win this one in a close one. I'm going to say 31-24. It goes down to the wire, but the Buckeyes pull it out.
Yeah, no, good points there. I feel like, yeah, like you have to come to expect anything can happen just based on what has transpired over these last 4 years. But like you said, with Ohio State, the way they bounced back last year and went on to win a national championship, I think that cleared a little bit of a mental obstacle for this program and Ryan Day. And obviously, we've seen them run the table. They've been the most dominant team in college football this year. I mean, you can make the case for Indiana, but I still think, I mean, Ohio State double-digit wins every week since their week 1 victory over Texas. It's a well-rounded team in every sense, and I just think it as long as they don't completely shoot themselves in the foot, that the talent will win out, and they're going to win by double digits. I have Buckeyes covering and winning 30-17.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like when I first started thinking about this game, you think back to last year and how Michigan pulled the unthinkable and still was able to win that game, and they did it without basically a quarterback, without a productive offense. I mean, they basically did it with like one leg, right? Like, and they were stable, and they did on the road. So it's hard to pick against them in the situation, right? They are at home. They're coming off a good win against Maryland. The offense seems to be figuring themselves out, specifically the passing game. The run game hasn't been a question at all season. They've been great, and it certainly helps having Jordan Marshall back. I just, I think we've seen this crop up all season long. The youth and the inexperience come into play, right, when it comes to mistakes and turnovers and decisions and everything else. And I think that's one of the things people really aren't talking about, especially on the Michigan side at this point, how much of a factor that will be. Now, that said, Ohio State hasn't forced a ton of turnovers this year. I think they've forced 12 all year, 3 of which came against Grambling and 3 other came in another game. So they're not a turnover happy defense. They're not going to necessarily turn that. It's not in their DNA. So I think if Michigan's going to turn turnovers, it's going to be on poor decisions or just inexplicable mistakes. We've seen that come up with this team all season long. They seem to have fixed it a little bit against Maryland, but Maryland's not Ohio State, and so I have my doubts or my questions heading in. But I'm expecting a good game. I'm really curious to see what happens here, because Ohio State, if you look at Ohio State's schedule, they haven't played. I mean, it's nothing great. They open against Texas. Texas hasn't been what we expect them to be, and they've largely beaten up on the bottom tier of the Big Ten. Yes, they did beat Illinois. That was a good win. They handled Washington much like Michigan did. And they beat the rest of their opponents, like you said, by double digits and pretty comfortably, whereas Michigan couldn't do it. I mean, they played a lot of close games this year and kind of had to squeak out some of them. So I think Ohio State's the more complete team here, the better team talent-wise, and they're the more experienced team. And I think at the end of the day, those things are all going to weigh out.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think for Michigan too, the key is you want to keep this close heading into halftime, because we've seen Ohio State play a lot tenser in the second half in recent years when the game's kind of still hanging in the balance. Michigan just has seemed to reach another gear, while Ohio State seemingly has folded under pressure. So if you can just instill a little bit of doubt in Ohio State heading into late in the game, you can't rule out Michigan's chances. So, like you said, I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan is able to pull off another upset too, just based off of the recent history here. But just looking as far as from top to bottom, what players each team has in certain positions, it's hard to pick against Ohio State in this game specifically. But we will have plenty of coverage on MLive.com throughout the rest of the week and after the game. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you after.